I don't know about you, but when I picture retiring, certainly when I picture rabbis retiring, I think about rabbis going to Florida or going to Arizona or California, but there's been an influx of rabbis who are retired to the Twin Cities, and it is really enriching our rabbinic community. That certainly is the case for Rabbi David Thomas, who is our guest darshan this morning. He retired to Minnesota, not for the weather, but following in his children's and grandchildren's footsteps. You can read about Rabbi Thomas in this morning's HaGadol, and I'll just add to what it says that Rabbi Thomas is a rabbi's rabbi. We are delighted to have him as part of our rabbinic community, where he serves in a sense as, I don't know if I can say senior statesman, because now that I've gotten gray, you don't feel very senior to me, but certainly a very experienced statesman, and we'll invite him forward as he shares with us this morning some words of Torah.
Shabbat Shalom. Before I get started, I want to wish Preston a hearty mazel tov to you and your family. Yasher Koach, you did a beautiful job today. To the wedding couple who's getting married soon, mazel tov to you as well. And I hope you are able to build a home together that keeps you in health and happiness for a lifetime. I want to express my gratitude to Rabbi Davis for the invitation to offer a Dvar Torah on this very special Shabbat HaGadol, the great Shabbat before Pesach. You see, it is a special honor to have the opportunity to teach on this particular Shabbat. When I was a congregational rabbi, and I can't tell you how good it is to say that in every sense, I served a different Bethel, Congregation Bethel of the Sudbury River Valley in Sudbury, Massachusetts. Now, one of the more regular active members of the congregation was a gentleman named Aaron Cohen, Zichrona Livracha. Aaron learned Haftarah at every opportunity that he had, which was almost every week that there was no bar or bat mitzvah. And regular shul goer as he was, he claimed his space, his seat, right there in the front of the shul, where he could keep an eye on things, by which I mean keep an eye on me. Anyway, on every Shabbat HaGadol, without fail, for years and years, Aaron would remind me out loud and publicly that traditionally Shabbat HaGadol was one of two Shabbatot when the rabbi is expected to give a lengthy sermon. On Shabbat Shuvah, the other Shabbat, the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, the rabbi is expected to speak at length on the laws of Teshuvah, on repentance. And on Shabbat HaGadol, the congregation would be treated to a lengthy discourse on every detailed intricacy in the laws of Pesach, mostly focusing on kashrut and the myriad of ways that people would probably get it wrong. Aaron insisted that I wasn't really doing my job if I didn't speak for at least 3 hours on these two occasions each year. And now you can understand why Rabbi Davis invited me to speak on this particular Shabbat. Now, before you worry, my goal is really to get you to Kiddush before noon. So I'll spare you the lengthy treatise on kashrut and focus on another distinguishing feature of this Shabbat, and that is its special Haftarah, which comes from Malachi, the last prophet of the Hebrew Bible. Malachi was chosen for this special Shabbat before Pesach because he speaks of the ultimate liberation of Israel from oppression. On this Shabbat, Malachi urges us to look to the future, beyond our Passover Seders, to that great day which will come in the end of time with Elijah as its messenger. As we read of that ultimate redemption, we are encouraged to look beyond our celebration of Passover this week and beyond the liberation of the Jewish people to the liberation universally of all humankind. So when we sit down with our families and friends at our Seder tables on Friday night, and before the annual debate over the consistency of the matzah balls breaks out, The HaGadol calls on us to relive our past. Each year we are commanded to experience again the historic trauma of our people, the exile, the oppression, the persecution, enslavement. And we are asked to tell the story in such a way that we feel like we are there. The retelling begins with Deuteronomy. Arami Oved Avi, my ancestor was a wandering Aramean who went down to Egypt and sojourned there. Our story begins long ago in the past. The language is in the detached third person. But as the Seder progresses, with the matzah uncovered, the narrative begins to focus inwardly to ourselves. We say, Avadim Hayinu, the Pharaoh b'Mitzrayim, we became slaves of Pharaoh in Egypt. And then finally, before Hallel, the Psalms of Praise, we remind ourselves that this is not some mere story that we tell each year. It's an enactment of our own liberation from bondage to freedom. B'chol dor vador chayav adam lirot et atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa miMitzrayim. In each and every generation, each one of us is obligated to see ourselves as having been redeemed from Egypt. So on this Shabbat, Malachi comes to remind us that even as we experience the redemption of our own past and bring that sense of freedom to our present, we also look forward to the redemption of all that is yet to be, the redemption of all humanity. In other words, having crossed the Sea of Reeds, we must not stop for very long on the shoreline looking back. We must take care not to get stuck in the wilderness any more than we should have stayed on the other side of the sea in Egyptian bondage. We keep marching onward towards redemption. And when will redemption come? Malachi tells us, behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet to turn the hearts of the parents to their children and the hearts of the children to their parents. For Preston and his family, this must feel so real in this moment. The hearts turn to one another, parent to child, child to parent. How wonderful, Preston, that you got to celebrate your bar mitzvah on this day, the day the Haftarah speaks directly to you and to your parents. It calls out to you to remind you that everything that you did to prepare for this day and everything your parents did to make this day possible is all about the love and the respect that you are obligated to give them, and the love and the respect and the trust that they're obligated to give you. Turning the hearts of parents to children and children to parents is a beautiful statement of family love, respect, and family unity. But I actually think there's much more to it than that. One only need to ask, what would happen, or what happens when the hearts of children are turned away from their parents? Not only is there a painful disconnect, but such a turning represents a profound loss, maybe even a rejection of the past. When the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt, this loss of past was the loss of any memory of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, Leah, the history of our people, their relationship to God. It's all forgotten in those days in Egypt. Similarly, when the hearts of parents are not turned toward their children, they lose sight of their future. Pharaoh's cruel decree to kill the firstborn of every Jew was intended to destroy our people's hope for the future, because without children, there is none. With our hearts turned toward our children, we are able to see a vision of a world beyond ourselves. We read Malachi on this great Shabbat, so that next week, as we sit with our families at the Seder table, we will escape the bonds of the story of our past, and we will look to the future, beholding a vision of our ultimate redemption and the redemption of all humankind. When we look up from the story of our bondage and our liberation, we see that the next step on our journey is not Yerushalayim, but Sinai. For the first thing we do next Saturday night is to begin to count the Omer, marking the days from Passover to Shavuot, from Egypt to Sinai, from liberation to law, from freedom to responsibility. Indeed, our celebration of Pesach is not complete until we stand together at Sinai on Shavuot. The celebration of our liberty is not complete without the liberation of all people. A world free from oppression depends on us creating a society based on the gift of law at Sinai. It is a law of freedom. It is a law of truth. It is a law of justice and of righteousness. May God grant us the wisdom to recognize the truths in Torah. May God give us the strength to uphold its doctrines. May the hearts of parents be for our children, and may the hearts of our children be for their parents. And may the yearnings of our hearts for peace be fulfilled this year, B'Shana Haba'ah B'Yerushalayim.
You can see why he's an esteemed colleague. Thank you so much.